Hello everyone, welcome to this new episode of Data Coffee. The concept is simple. A guest, Hanan, managing partner at Artefact, a topic, DeepSeek, for today, and a good coffee. Hello Hanan.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, and you? Very well.
So, you must have been shaken by the arrival of DeepSeek, completely shaken.
But what exactly is DeepSeek? It's a model that we've seen a lot over the past 2 years. It's a model like those from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Mistral, and it's a model. There are several. We have the language model, the reasoning model, and it's a model that has made a lot of noise in the news recently.
But why all this noise? Why this buzz? Well, for many reasons.
The first reason is that we follow the news about models, especially in Asia. And it's true that Asian countries have worked extensively on these models. So we've been following them for some time. And what we've noticed recently is that there's been a significant acceleration on their part in terms of releases. And more recently, they released something around Christmas, New Year. The model called DeepSeek V3, which is the third version of their language model, was already very impressive when we tried it, really competing in some aspects with the major models on the market. And now, with the R1 model, they have introduced a reasoning model. So it's something that's a bit rarer. It's a model that is not only capable of speaking, but also of thinking through a succession of steps of reflection, which is called the chain of thoughts. And where it has been impressive is that truly the model is really efficient on one hand, and on the other hand, the figures, at least the announced and also observed consumption, which we will discuss later, are quite interesting. This means that the announced figures for training are around $6 million, which is anecdotal. When you compare it to several hundred million or even a billion, that must have been used to maintain certain models we have, especially in the US or Europe. And then the cost of inference is also announced to be 30 times cheaper than traditional models. As much for the training cost, obviously. There are controversies arising saying yes, but did they take all the parameters into account, etc. As for the inference cost, it's a reality. Today it's cheaper to make another model in terms of usage cost. So there is quite a strong reaction somewhere, both on the tech side and the financial market side, as we've seen with the stock prices, but which also reflect, in a way, this evolution of the paradigm and this logic of questioning whether potentially we have been racing for power without considering the race for efficiency.
It's really impressive. And well, of course, money is important, but I also like technical topics. What do you see as innovation from your point of view behind all this? It's important because there's real innovation.
People say, oh, but they copied OpenAI to do this, In fact, it's a copy, etc. Well, I won't get into the debate about what was used to train a model or not. You should know that using a larger model to train a smaller model is something that exists. Sometimes it might be more discreet, and sometimes it might also be less politically important to talk about it. In this case, there is real innovation, especially in the training phase. They have greatly exploiting the logic of what we call reinforcement learning means that the model iterates until it reaches its goal. And this has allowed, especially compared to traditional supervised approaches, to be much less energy consuming and much less demanding, in quotes, in terms of resources and in training time. And where it has been really interesting is that it has allowed for two things. It has allowed, firstly, as I mentioned, to be more efficient, and secondly, it has also enabled the model to have, by design, this reasoning logic. Because when you do reinforcement learning, in a way you are groping to find the right result. And so by groping, in a way, you have already integrated this logic of reflection into the model. That's where it's really interesting, because there is a double benefit in a way. And so if you read the research papers from DeepSeek that talk about the aha moment, the moment when the model starts to say, oh, wait, maybe I made a mistake, etc. And actually, it's precisely the direct legacy of this behavior of reinforcement learning. That's where it's really interesting in a way that captures attention and curiosity.
You mentioned it a bit, and I'm going to dig a little deeper, but regarding the bad buzz, precisely, What is your opinion?
I think that there is a controversy. It was confirmed by Microsoft, by OpenAI, saying, yes, we have seen traces of strange activities on the servers, indicating there were spikes in requests and queries, etc. A somewhat fun fact, if you ask DeepSeek certain questions, sometimes it responds exactly like OpenAI. This fuels the controversy. Whether it is taken or not afterwards, I don't know. Will we find out? Maybe not. However, as I said, it's not just an Asian copy of American models. There is still research work that has been done, very interesting work, which, by the way, and it is confirmed, the teams, since it's open source, the different model providers dissect this research paper to also try to benefit from it. And in a way, this is where we also see that open source is not just lagging behind closed source, but also catching up with closed source in certain aspects. This is where it gets very interesting. And the other controversy that we see a lot, and this one is a bit more concrete, is that obviously it's a model from China. And so when you use the model's direct API, you agree to be aware that the data you send is sent to China. So I don't want to get into the debate of whether China is better than the US or the US is worse than China. There are still data being sent outside your jurisdiction, if I can call it that. And where it becomes more problematic is with the US, and the conditions for using this data are not very clear. Yet some will tell you because it's China, obviously it's not clear. And others will simply tell you that DeepSeek is a startup that was founded a little over a year ago. It's also a very young startup. And let's remember, when the first models released by OpenAI came out, the terms weren't very clear either. So for now, I give them a bit of credit. We'll see. What the future will tell us, whether it's a siphoning strategy or simply conditions that are not yet fully written. However, since it's a model that remains quite interesting, there are solutions to test it with all the security requirements, notably by taking the open source model and installing it on servers in Europe, for example. And these are things that are offered today by cloud providers, who notably offer you the ability to use the DeepSeek model directly on their infrastructures to them, and thus, in a way, no longer being dependent on this security aspect of data being outside your jurisdiction, especially in China. Here too, there is another recent controversy, but this one it is also interesting. But if you ask, for example, DeepSeek what Taiwan is, you will obviously get a bias that tells you Taiwan is a Chinese province, for example. Now, we know that this is not something that is obviously shared in Europe, and even less so in the US. And so in a way, this raises the question of how much we can trust the tool of a model, and to what extent. There is a certain subjectivity that is integrated into the models. That being said, it's true everywhere. This means that recently, in the US, they renamed the domestic Gulf the Gulf of America. I don't know if the Chinese agree with that. I have no idea. But actually, in quotes, I think the most important thing is to say we must use it with all safety conditions. Today, it's possible. And obviously, we must keep a critical mind about what the model provides as an answer. And that too is something quite universal. It's not unique to the Chinese model.
Thank you. It's very interesting. I would say that the latest controversy is actually in contradiction with the first, in the sense that it shows, although it is not a simple copy of an American model, but that DeepSeek has its own personality. Thank you very much, Hanan. Really very interesting. Thank you. And see you soon for a new episode of Data Coffee.